Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Josh, and as you know, I am continuing this Money Talk series where I get to interview so many cool people that are doing great things in the personal finance world. But especially today, we have all the way from DC, Andrew. How's it going, man?
It's going great. Thank you for having me, Josh.
Absolutely. How's it going over there?
It's a cloudy day here in DC, but that means I get some great light coming in here from the window. I'm a filmmaker by trade, so this is what I do. I get some great light coming in here from the window, some soft light, and I think I look great.
Well, you look awesome. Let's just jump real quick into it. Your claim to fame, I guess you could say, is that, well, one of them is that you paid $180,000. You and your wife, right, in 2 years?
Yes. So it took a little over 2 years, maybe even close to 2.5 years for us to pay off all of our debt. We had $182,573. About 175 of that was in student loans, and the other 7 grand was on a car lease. And I consider the car lease to be debt because it's an obligation that we had to pay on a vehicle. So that's definitely my our claim to fame is paying that amount of debt off in that relatively a short amount of time. And even when we started out paying off our debt, we didn't even know that it was going to be possible to do it that quickly.
I feel like people that have these challenges and they tackle these challenges so quickly, there has to be a mindset that comes with them. What was that mindset while you were growing up? How was money talked about while you were growing up?
So I want to start way back in the beginning when I was way younger. And I think this is relevant because when I was probably I think I was in sixth grade, I got my first job as a newspaper delivery boy. And so I really got to learn about money. I got to learn about, they say the value of a dollar. So I really got to learn the value of a dollar because I was delivering newspapers, and every newspaper I delivered I would earn maybe a quarter or 15 cents or something like that. So I had 70 or 80 newspapers that I would deliver twice a week. And then every 2 weeks, I would collect these payments from my customers. And the payments, I could get a tip for a dollar or two. That was my tip for delivering these newspapers to each of these customers. So they might give me the bill for the newspapers was $2.10, and they might give me $3 or $3.10 for their payment. So I really got to learn the value of that dollar at a very, very young age, and I think that that really benefited me when it came time to pay off my debts.
Wait, so were your parents entrepreneurs by any chance?
So my parents, neither of them were entrepreneurs. My father is a machinist,
Okay.
so he's worked in manufacturing for his entire life, and he's only worked for a couple of different companies. And my mother is she was a stay-at-home mom for the most part. She did work some part-time jobs in the school system, but for the most part, she was at home taking care of myself and my sister. Now, I will say that ever since I started my own video production business, I do feel like my parents both got maybe they got bit by that entrepreneurial bug because my father recently, this past year in 2020, actually quit his full-time job and started his own machine shop independently. And my mother has gone on to start producing artwork and selling her own artwork. So I think maybe the entrepreneurial bug and seeing how I was able to be successful as an entrepreneur in the video production space has inspired both of my parents, which is pretty cool.
Well, that's awesome. That kind of reminds me when I was a kid, I used to sell at school the Hello Kitty stickers. I don't even remember that. I don't know how old you are, but I used to sell those for 25 cents, and I would have kids that would sell them for me, and then I would give them like 5 cents just for selling that. That's crazy. It just took me back. I didn't even remember I did that.
Yeah, I remember Hello Kitty. I don't know about the stickers, but I do remember that craze, and I remember, a lot of times there was kids in my high school selling chocolate candy bars, and so they would have to do that as part of a fundraiser to raise money. So I think that kind of thing in the schools, I think that's pretty cool, where kids can start to, learn the value of money and start earning money at an early age.
Looking at money right now, is that like the same mentality had while you were young?
So I think something happened to me at, later in high school where I really got, for some reason, I got really into the idea that I needed to go to a prestigious college and I needed to take out student loans in order to do that. And that was going to be okay because I was going to make so much money after college that the student loans weren't even going to matter. So somehow I got from the mentality of understanding the value of the dollar to the mentality of let me just take out a bunch of loans because it's going to be worth it in the end and I'm going to make a ton of money after college, so this debt isn't even going to matter. But the reality of it was that after college, I was not like landing some kind of huge like 5, 6, or 7 figure job that maybe I imagined I would have as a high schooler, and that was it was going to be a lot more work to get rid of those student loans than I realized. So I think at this point where I'm at in my life now, when I ultimately have paid off all of my student loans, I think I've gotten back to that original mindset where I really understood the value of money and how to treat money effectively that I had gained back when I was in middle school and my early high school years, that maybe I lost between the ages of 18 and 22, when I was taking out massive amounts of student loans to attend a school that I honestly probably I couldn't afford.
That happens to like 90% of us.
Yeah.
We think we're gonna repay them, and then we realize. I remember for me, I went to film school as well, and I remember my first year I did my internship. It was unpaid because entertainment does not pay internships, and I was driving from Orange County to LA, 2 hours each day, going to work 9 to 5, then driving back 2 more hours, and then taking classes from 7 to 10. And during that time, someone tells me, "Oh, you know that the like, if you take the assistant route, you're only gonna make like 24 to 30K a year, right?" And that's kind of like that was one of the signs that I was like, "Whoa, I hadn't realized that you don't really make a lot of money when you finish school." I don't know if that happened to you.
Well, I think that my realization kind of came. Well, I also did an internship, and let me talk about that first. Because I did an internship. I think it was kind of a similar situation to what you had, where it wasn't quite as long of a drive. I think I only had about an hour drive each way to one of my unpaid internships. I did this internship the summer between my sophomore or the summer between my junior and senior year in college, so between my third and fourth year. And I did this internship where I had to drive an hour and then I worked for 8 hours and then I drove back. And that took up my entire day for an entire summer and I wasn't paid anything for it. I managed to negotiate for them to pay for my gas because it was such a far drive for me. Um, so I was smart enough to ask for that up front. But essentially, I was doing video editing for a company, and I was doing it completely for free and for experience. And so I think you know being at that company and learning about what other video editors were earning at that particular company kind of taught me a lot about maybe what I'd like to do, because I didn't see them making as much as I really felt I had the potential to make or I wanted to make. So when I came out of college, one of the first things I started to do, oh, well, I did take like kind of a part-time like summer job the summer immediately out of college, but I used that as kind of a bridge to kind of start my own video business where I could, really be able to charge what I felt I was worth.
So let's talk about that because again, I can take my example. That never crossed my mind. I never thought of actually starting a company, but you did. How was starting out for you? Becoming an entrepreneur, you're getting out of college, you don't have a lot of work experience, and now you are making things happen.
Well, it was really an interesting way to start a business coming right out of college. But I think it's one of the best ways because I didn't necessarily have a family to feed. I didn't have a mortgage payment to make. I was able to rent, the pretty much the in-law suite at someone's home down there in Miami, which is a very popular thing to do, is have these little in-law suites that people rent out. So I was able to rent that out for $750 a month, all utilities included, at which made my overhead costs very, very minimal. When you think of that, it's only $9,000 per year was all I needed to cover my rent, internet, electric, everything.
Yeah,
So that kept my overhead really low. I wouldn't have been able to do that had I been married, had I had a family, had kids, things like that. So and what that allowed me to do was, having that low overhead was I could, really, start a company from the ground up, because I didn't necessarily need to have tremendous amount of income right away, which is, I think what stops a lot of people from essentially quitting their job and starting their own company is that the boat is not close enough to the dock. Like if they jumped and tried to make that leap from a full-time job to their business and their business wasn't, close enough to the dock yet and earning as much money as they needed to sustain themselves, then they're going to fall in the water and get wet. Is that you need to be able to cover your expenses so that you can eat and have a roof over your head, because those without that you're not going to be able to have your business. So for me, coming out of college and having that college student mentality of I can live as cheaply as possible, I think that was a huge help in starting my business way, in the very beginning, because you have to build a portfolio. For a video production company or a video creator, video producer like I was, you have to build a portfolio before people will start to pay you really what your services are worth, because you need to prove yourself. You need to build the relationships. You need to build up the body of work, that shows that you're valuable.
totally. And was all the student loan that you paid off, was that yours or that includes your wife?
Well, about 98% of it was mine. So I of the 175K that we had in student loans, and we were married, so it was both of our debt, and we had accepted that. Um, but of the 175K, about 171 of it was mine, and only about 4,000 of it was belonging to my wife. So 98% of those student loans belonged to me.
Why are you paying that off? Like a lot of people are just waiting for the government, they're doing the 2025 year plan. Why did you decide to do this?
Well, when I was taking this, there was a class I took in 2018, and I talked about this in my debt-free story video, which I'll plug my YouTube channel later.
I'll link it
But
down below.
so in my debt-free story video, I talked about this. I took a course called the 10,000 Small Businesses Program, and it was being taught at Miami-Dade College. And it was a course that was offered completely for free. Everyone that was accepted received a full scholarship to the program, and it was sponsored essentially by the Goldman Sachs Foundation, as part of the Wall Street bailout. So in taking this course, it was me with, I'd say, maybe about 25 other small business owners, in my area, which was the Miami area, and all of us had at least four employees, and we all had at least $150,000 per year in annual revenue for our business. And to be honest, when I went into this program and sat down in class for the first day, I realized that I was one of the smallest fish in the pond. There was a lot of more experienced, older business owners who had been doing their thing for a long time, and they were taking these same kind of classes that I was to help them grow and expand their business. So being in that class, speaking with those people, hearing about their business plans, one of the things I realized over the course of I think it's a 12 or 13 or 14-week course, over the course of those classes, one of the things I realized was that I was never going to be able to achieve that level of success that some of these people had. I mean, some of these people had businesses with 100 employees. I was never going to be able to achieve that level of success unless I had no debt. And becoming debt free at that point became my main objective, because I knew that was the next step towards growing a successful business.
So it sounds like you really wanted your company to grow. You didn't have that mentality of like, if this doesn't work, I'm gonna go back into a corporate job or anything like that.
I mean, that's always been in the back of my mind as an option, because as a business owner, you never know if you're going to make it in the next month. All of your clients could pull out on you, and you could have no more income. So it's always been in the back of my mind, like, hey, if this business thing doesn't work out, then I can always go and get a corporate job somewhere. I mean, I'm not going to be happy doing that. But if push comes to shove, then and worst comes to worst, I can always go work in an office and produce videos for a company, because the skill that and this is important, because the you want the skill that you have to be able to bring value to some people or to some companies. And I think that if you're building a skill like I was, which was doing video production, that was easily transferable to really any industry, that because many industries now need video. So in building that skill, I felt very confident that if the business didn't work out, I would be able to go snag a job pretty quick.
How did you get your wife on board with this?
So I think this was one of the most tricky parts of the process, and I think a lot of people probably have difficulty with getting a spouse on board with getting out of debt, because you can get excited about something and you can say, all right, this is what we got to do, we got to get out of debt. But if you don't have the buy-in from your spouse, which is when you're married, you need to be in sync with what you want to do with your money, because you have these shared resources of your income, and you can use that and leverage that income to attain these big goals together, more effectively than you would be able to do separately. So I think what really got my wife Michelle on board was when I shared that vision for what our life would be like in the future, and what my business and could be like in the future, and our income could be like in the future, if we were debt free. So we looked at it from, I like to look at things from a numbers standpoint. So we looked at, what's it going to take for, what are some of the things that we want to do? Like, we wanted to buy a house, we wanted to start a family, these kind of things. And we thought, it's not necessarily going to be possible and plausible to save up a down payment of $30,000, $40,000 for a home if we need to pay the student loans every month. So, with that kind of vision in mind, and I think this is one of the most important things, is that vision for what the future is going to be like. Um, that's how we were able to both come together and say, this is what we want in the future, and this is going to be the best path to get there. And I think that's what ultimately got my wife Michelle on board, was when we had that shared vision and we had those shared goals together, and we both talked it out and agreed the best strategy to attain those goals was to become debt free.
So you take the class, you have your wife on board. Now comes the heavy lifting. How did you do it? Like, can you take me step by step on what method you used to work on this? Because it's a big goal, and to achieve it in such small time, a lot of people cannot handle that.
Yeah. So, when we first started, the first thing we did was we made sure that we fully understood all of the debts that we had. We wrote everything down, all of the different debts that we had, and there was six different, like, companies or debtors that we owed money to. Um, and so we wrote all those down, we wrote the amounts down, and we decided on a method by which we were going to start paying them off. So we started off with the debt snowball method. And that's where you pay your debts from smallest to largest in terms of the amount that you owe, regardless of the interest rate. So we started off with that method, and there was a bunch of different smaller debts that we owed to these similar debtors. So, like, for example, there was a student loan servicer called Nelnet, and the total that we owed to them was maybe 24 or 25,000, but that was broken up into like 7 or 8 different loans of $3,000 or $4,000 a piece. So we decided to put those kind of at the top of the list, because those were the smallest debts. And so we started paying those off one by one, and we started working on them every month, $1,000, $2,000, whatever we could squeeze out of our budget. Um, we started putting it towards those small loans first. And really, our mindset at that point became an idea of, you know, what can we do? What else? What other levers can we pull? What buttons can we push in order to get this debt paid off as quickly as possible? And one of the strategies that we came up with was, I said, we have this great office that we operate my business out of. But how much is this office costing us on a monthly basis? And I did the math, I looked into it, and it was maybe $1,400 or $1,500 per month, in rent, electric, internet, phone, utilities, stuff like that, for us to operate out of that office. And so I looked at that and I said, you know what? Maybe is there a way we can operate without this office? We can save that $1,500 per month, and therefore it stays in my pocket and it can go right to paying off debt. And so that kind of mindset where it's like, what else can we do to cut our expenses? What else can we do to boost our income? And so another thing that I started to do to, try and cut our expenses slash boost my income, because as a business owner, with running a small business, cutting your expenses equals boosting your income. So, that those two things kind of became one and the same, for a lot of aspects of this, because, that's my job is I'm a small business owner. So cutting my expenses at the office meant boosting my income. What else could I do to cut my expenses? I was able to transition some of my people that I was hiring as employees. They were willing to, since we weren't in an office anymore, they were willing to operate as independent contractors, rather than employees. They preferred the, work from whenever I want, wherever I want, as long as I get the job done, kind of schedule. So we switched over to that rather than having people on payroll, and that saved a lot of money in terms of the payroll taxes that I was paying, and that also boosted my income. So these little things, these little changes that we made, really went, not only to save us money but also to boost our income. And another thing that we did was we started to do our monthly budget. I know everyone talks about this when they talk about, getting out of debt and paying off their debts. But the monthly budget is important to do. And the reason is because you're making that plan at the beginning of the month before any money comes in, before any money is spent. You're making a plan for how the money is going to be spent. Um, and I think that's what a lot of people miss about, they miss the mark on budgeting, because at one point I thought I was budgeting, but really I was just kind of writing down a list of all my monthly expenses, and I was like, oh, this is a budget. But really, when you're budgeting, you're sitting down at the beginning of the month before the money is spent, before the money even comes in, and saying, that money that's going to come in, I know it's coming. What is it going to be spent on this coming month? And then you can just kind of stick to that plan. So when we were doing our budget, that's what really enabled us to start, reserving certain amounts of money, because we said, oh, we're gonna have $5,000 coming in this month. Okay, well, $3,000 of this we're going to reserve for student loans, and we only have another $2,000 to work with. So how are we going to make that work for our monthly expenses? And those are approximate numbers. I don't know if that's exactly the numbers we were working with, but we were saying, oh, rent is $1,200. We need food. How much can we spend on food? Well, maybe we can get our food budget down to $100 a week. That seems reasonable. So let's put our food budget at $400 for the month. And if there's more than 4 weeks, we can just kind of scrounge for the last couple of days. Um, so those kind of things with the budget, helped us to start reserving that money for paying off the student loans, which I think helped kind of turbocharge this whole process.
It almost becomes kind of like a little game, right? What do I have to do here, do there in order to make it work?
Yeah. And one of the things we did when we first started laying out our plan was we decided, what period of time is this going to be feasible to actually complete our debt payoff? And I think the number we came up with was about 4 years. Um, and we said, well, 4 years seems like a reasonable amount of time. I think it was 48 months, And we had, the 175K in terms of student debt. So I think it was like 3,500 or 4,000 a month that we kind of figured we would be able to pay towards the student loans on average. Was that amount. So we said, all right, this seems like a reasonable amount. We think we'll be able to do this, and and so our plan is to get it all paid off in 4 years. And then we said, what else can we do to get it maybe paid off even faster?
Did you try any like side hustles, Uber Eats, get anything out of the ordinary 9 to 5, I guess you could say?
So that's always a really interesting thought that I have in my mind because I thought about like, hey, I can pick up a side job doing X, Y, and Z in order to make some extra cash and help out paying off our debt more quickly. But every time I thought of that, it was kind of a really it was a tough comparison because I also have a business that I could theoretically, having independent contractors now rather than full-time employees that I'm responsible for, giving 40 hours of work per week to, I could also just give my independent contractors a little bit less work and take on more work in the business for myself. So I think that was kind of my side hustle was, taking more of the business work onto my shoulders, and maybe working extra hours for my small business, doing video editing or whatnot, and doing that in order to side hustle, rather than getting a traditional side hustle that people might think of when they hear that phrase. So my small business and putting extra hours in there was really my side hustle.
And now that you're debt free, you started a YouTube channel. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I really wanted to, having had this experience, I really wanted to do something that would help me make an impact on a larger number of people than I was currently having an impact on. Because one of my main jobs at doing video production is I was making wedding videos. I was doing videos for my university, University of Miami, which was having an impact, but it wasn't necessarily having such a broad impact on such a large swath of people. And I felt like YouTube could be a platform that could help me to do that. And so I've had my eye on creating a YouTube channel for a long time. I did try to start a daily vlog, way back in 2016, and I made it to like 45 days before I quit, which is pretty impressive. It was a lot of work. So, but I've had my eye on starting a YouTube channel for a long time, and I finally had this experience that I felt like I could bring value to a large number of people, by sharing. And I just felt like I was getting back to my roots as far as like handling money, and how I've learned to handle money throughout my life. And I felt like I could help a lot of people by by sharing that knowledge that I have and those methods that I have of thinking about money. So that's kind of what really made me want to start that YouTube channel, and what pushed me over the edge. If I was standing on the diving board on the very edge with my toes curled over the edge of the diving board there, what gave me that little push to jump was essentially losing my job when the pandemic happened. Because as someone that makes a lot of wedding videos, there's not been a lot of weddings since last March. So as soon as I finished editing all of my previous work, and I caught up on my backlog, I was like, what do I do next? And it was time to start that YouTube channel, and I knew exactly what I needed to talk about on it.
Since you mentioned you wanted to give advice, what advice would you give to a younger Andrew who is just coming out of school and trying to tackle this student loan mess that sometimes it seems that we can't really handle?
So I think one of the most important things that I did, as far as becoming debt free, and one of the best things I've done in the past few years is to make sure that you're developing your own personal brand. And that's something that I started working on. I mean, I had my small business, I had that brand, but I didn't necessarily have a brand of just me. And I think that having a personal brand is something that you can really leverage, in order to get a higher paying position, or do work on the side or start your own small business. Because once you have that personal brand, that's what the relationships you build will be built on is um, your own self, and your own personality, if you will. So I think if I was just coming out of college, once again, that's probably what I would tell myself is, hey, don't forget to work on your own personal brand. Don't forget to work on yourself. Don't necessarily get wrapped up in building the brand of your small business, because that might not be around forever, but you will be around for your entire life.
Absolutely. I love that. Andrew, thank you so much for talking with me. It was such a pleasure. And I'm going to post down below all the links, all the information so people can go ahead and follow you too.
I appreciate it, Josh. Thanks so much for having me and allowing me to share my story with your audience.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you.